an anti-imperialist position on the crisis in Ukraine, submitted by the Odessa Solidarity Campaign. The war in Ukraine is raging with no end in sight. People are suffering and fears are rising that the conflict could widen and even involve nuclear weapons. Many well-meaning people around the world are calling for a ceasefire and negotiations. We all want peace, but it does not good to promote solutions that don't take into account what led up to the war in the first place. Back in 1991, as the Soviet Union was collapsing, the US government promised that NATO would not expand 1 inch eastward. But since then, all 14 new NATO members have been former Soviet states or allies. Sweden and Finland are expected to join soon. Both Georgia and Ukraine, which border Russia, have asked to join. That would complete the encirclement of Russia's western flank. It would be as if Russia was building an anti-US military alliance of all South and Central American countries and was about to admit Mexico. Obviously, the US would see that as an existential threat. When Ukraine first became an independent state in 1991, Ukraine and Russia were at peace. But in 2014, the US backed the violent right-wing coup that brought to power an anti-Russian government that openly embraced neo-Nazi paramilitary militias hostile to Ukraine's Russian minority. The new situation, which included the massacre on May 2nd, 2014, of at least 42 anti-coup protesters in Odessa by fascist-led mob, was seen as gravely threatening by the heavily ethnic Russian areas, eastern and southern Ukraine. The result was that Crimea, voting to rejoin Russia, which it had been part of until 1954, and Donetsk and Lugansk in the Donbas region declaring themselves independent, areas within a united Ukraine. But Ukraine never implemented the terms of those Minsk agreements and instead carried out a military campaign to retake the separatist region with the loss of some 15,000 lives. Meanwhile, since at least 2014, the US and other NATO countries have carried out regular, massive joint military exercises with Ukraine, land, sea and air, right up to Russia's borders. In late 2021 and early 2022, President Putin of the Russian Federation offered to hold negotiations with the US and NATO to discuss Russia's security concerns, but the offer was ignored. This was before Russia recognized the independent republics in the Donbas. Subsequently, Russian offers to negotiate also were rejected. By February 2022, Ukraine was intensifying its war in the Donbas, leading Russia to intervene, with the stated purpose of defending the people of the Donbas and demilitarizing and denazifying Ukraine. Whether people agree with that action or not, it was anything but unprovoked. Since then, as of September 18, the US Department of Defense admits to providing 16.1 billion in military aid to Ukraine. Other estimates have it as high as 40 billion US dollars. Not counting aid to the US says is coming from 50 other allied countries, ensuring that the war will continue indefinitely. What began as a conflict between Russia and Ukraine has become a proxy war by the US and NATO countries against Russia, with Ukrainians as cannon fodder. It isn't necessary to endorse the Russian intervention in order to see that the real provocations for the war were the relentless eastward expansion of NATO, the US support for the right-wing anti-Russian coup of 2014, and the continuing and expanding war by the Ukraine to retake the Donbass. This being the case, we call on all peace and anti-war activists around the world to demand the following: no to all US and NATO support for Ukraine. No to all US-NATO military actions in Ukraine. No to all US-NATO sanctions against Russia. No to NATO and all US wars and occupations everywhere in the world. Thank you.